Hello guys, so I'm going to start with chapter 5, which discusses about logic models for evaluation. So let's say that when we know that we want to measure something, and let's say that we are too in rush to measure that specific thing, we sometimes overlook the factors, or why do we need to measure that? What aspects do we need to consider to measure that thing, so that hopefully we can improve and learn the weaknesses that we had in the previous period, or why our objectives is not yet achieved, and etc. So yes, so we're going to discuss about it. So speaking of evaluation, the book, I'm talking about the book that we are using, the logic models, mentioned about two types of evaluation. The first one is formative and the second one is summative. The formative measures about how can we improve, how can we enhance our performance, how can we be more effective. So it includes the parties that are contributed in the process. So it's about how we look at the work that we already done in a certain period. Meanwhile, in summative evaluation, it answers the question about what difference did we make, what outcome that we produce from our work. It involves the people that are affected by our work. So we view this evaluation from these two types of evaluation differently. From the formative, we look at our work. Meanwhile, in the summative, we ask the people what do they think about our work. So it's the main difference in these two types of evaluation, because we are too focused about the measurement itself. We sometimes forget the very first step of the evaluation, which is the designing, which is how can we speak the same language between the stakeholders, with also the people that are contributed along in the operational process of this project. So that's why the learning is important in designing the purpose of an evaluation. So the book mentioned about two kinds of learning. The first one is single loop and the second one is double loop. As written in the slide, the single loop focus about the efficiency, the effectiveness, whether our performance achieve the objectives that we are expected. And the double loop mostly discuss about do our project really useful for the society, or so the last thing in this chapter that is needed to be focused on is indicator, because I think indicator is a tricky thing in the evaluation process. The book mentioned about weight loss as an example, and I found it really interesting because let's say that you are diagnosed for obesity. A weight loss may be, a great news for you because you successfully lose weight that hopefully improve your health. Meanwhile, when you are not diagnosed for obesity, you have normal weight and you have a weight loss. That will be a symptom that you may, have health issues or something. So the weight loss is not merely indicating about something. So we need to see really closely about the cause and effect. So that's why indicator is important in the evaluation. Thank you.
Hi everyone, my name is Heikal and I would like to discuss with you about chapter 6 regarding display and meaning of logic model display and its implication. So first thing first is about variation and learning. So as you may know, there are two types of logic model that are often used, which are the TOC model and the PLM. The upper one is the example of a basic theory of change model and the lower one is the example of a PLM. And as you may know, there are many variations of models that are used by group or individuals. And also you may not know yet, but actually there are some key features that you need to know before making a logic model. Now let's move on to discuss about the key feature of the models itself. First, the key feature is graphic display. There are various types of graphic display model, and as you can see on the screen, on the left is the example of circular model, and on the right one is the example of pictorial image kind of model. Next, this is the example of a flowchart model. Which one of the three do you think the most interesting one? So, the right choice graphic used in a model would definitely help us to illustrate it in a dynamic way. And also the use of symbol or shapes like arrows to highlight a relationship, light bulb to highlight idea, tick to highlight approve, or cross to highlight rejected is very helpful. Yet, we also have to consider that in many different places, sometimes they define a symbol differently. The second key feature is complexity and meaning. Logic models have different kind of complexity and meanings. Maybe some models is simple and easy to read or to interpret, or maybe some model is very complex and very dense. And as you can see in the slide, is the example of a multi-strategy model, and it is very dense and complex because it has multiple functions from planning, managing, evaluation, communication, and it also has many arrows tooling features in the models which make it even more complex. Whereas the next example is a very different kind of model. It states important details such as visions, missions, and assumptions, and have fewer arrows, thus make it less complex. And in terms of reading models, there are different ways to do it. So for example, the circular model, you may read it clockwise. So for example, again, the flowchart model, you may read it from top to bottom. And pictorial image model, it has several entry points, right? So you may read it from those several entry points. The next two key features is content, uses, and creation, and also model benefits. As you may know, a model is heavily influenced by its creator, their backgrounds, and also its intended use. Maybe it used to help planning, evaluation, communication, organization development, learning, and so on. And also, model is heavily influenced by what kind of benefits they would like to make from making the model. For example, some model may be used to organize or display relationship among features, or it may be used as support operation, or it act as an input to other framework or models, and so on. And the last key features is the alternative approaches. There are two alternative approaches. The first one is causal loop diagrams, which used to display complex behavior and highlight cause and effect relationships, and logical framework. Usually a 4x3 matrix and having more reactive approach. And next are the three examples of a good logic model. You may pause the video if you want to look it more closely.
So hello everyone, I'm Hannah and today we'll be moving on to chapter 7, which is exploring archetypes. So first of all, archetypes are a great remedy for model block or display paralysis. They can also contribute significantly to model quality because they are more likely to secure intended results. Archetypes itself is commonly used as templates that offer simple evidence-based guides for action. Looks and feels like a program logic model, but the qualification is that all or some of the elements, relationship, and outcomes specified in the archetypes are tested and proven. You might pick a sample of archetypes from several bodies of research and combine them to create an initial version of PLM or program logic model. We can also provide framework for content that is revised to suit your existing context, or use as is because the archetype itself are already a diagram that illustrates strategies that are likely going to work. The evaluation logic models can also be in archetypes because they provide specific measurement guidelines. They also specify outcomes as well as indicators and often data collections tools that offer optimal points for evaluative inquiry, whether formative or summative. As a jumpstart for your work, archetypes can fill in the blank and also identify the elements and conditions that might be modified. First is the recipes for change. Archetypes rely on theory and involved by research as well as evaluation. It offers great chance of success because it is very reliable. It also builds on prior evidence-based example with carefully selected adaptations or revisions. One area where archetypes could be particularly helpful is in planning for evaluating the vast numbers of programs and also the efforts that target the actions of individuals as well as organizations. The work of K. Rockwell and also Claude Bennett as a starting point to build models is top. Targeting outcomes of program. It focuses on describing a sequence of outcome in planning, implementing, and also evaluating program. And then second, we have the value of archetypes. It can be used as a platform to inform learning about how to improve outcome implementations and also results. Archetype itself can also contribute to both program planning and also evaluation. It also can provide an umbrella or framework for design, as Mia and Hekel already discussed about the term umbrella last week. Also, in effect, this serves the development of knowledge, often evaluation. Archetypes are linked to valid and also reliable measures. And lastly, we have more critical thinking. Archetypes can provide a substantial benefits because they are founded on evidence as well as prior research. They also can contribute to substantial strategy development. It is very important to produce a model that is plausible, that are feasible, and also strategic. In addition to using archetypes, it is also a very good idea to employ research, literature, and also field practice in the model that we're going to implement. So this chapter also provides us with various program logic model examples, but today I would like to choose the federal block lens to explain a little bit more to you guys because I think it is very interesting and it is a little bit further than the education type of program logic models that we usually discuss in class. So this model illustrates an initiative targeting the improvement of system and also program accountability, as well as performance improvement as solutions and also delinquency problem. It serves the purpose here to show that the program mandated output and also outcome measures provide evidence of improvement programs and also systems in terms of specific and measurable accomplishments. For example, capacities, accountability, efficiency, quality, and also effectiveness. It is especially helpful that the model encourages identifications for both the problems and also the sub-problems to be addressed to appropriate activities. As you can see here before, I think this model is a very great example for us to learn and also how to develop a very great program logic model. So moving on to chapter 8, action profiles. This chapter specifically will demonstrate the amazing utility and also fast applications of logic models. First, we will start with the strategy evaluations and also learning. As often as model assists with evaluations, they help significantly with strategy as well as tactics. It can also be used to improve and prove services and provide a vision of intentional but a hopeful change. Models offer an alternative to long narrative and are easily revised to suit the change or in context of adaptive management. So therefore, in the future, this model will hope to have a hopeful change in whatever it is that it's being developed, as well as can also be easily be revised to whatever it is suitable for the users and also for the readers. So once again, this chapter actually has a lot of examples for you guys to read and to choose from. But first, I will start with the better corporate giving. Here in better corporate giving, we will strive toward the end of ending child hunger, and we will here focus on business as well as social interests, reducing child hunger itself, measuring and managing, and then lastly, alignment, accountability, and action. So first, starting with business and social interests. Actually, aligning business and social interests isn't a new idea because it is very vital in CSR, or corporate social responsibility, and also corporate giving. Therefore, the company itself uses logic model and also modeling to advance their plans and as well as evaluation. The company is called ConAgras. So ConAgras' food operating principles are simplicity, collaborations, imaginations, and also accountability, as you can see in the program logic model that it is on the right. From the research, they also have gathered and drafted a theory of change, or TOC, and also a program logic model. They also documented the knowledge-based strategies that would likely influence child hunger in the future and also in the present. And moving on to reducing child hunger. The Conacher Foods Foundation theory of change, we read it from left to right, and it identifies the 5 strategies of the current funding, which is public awareness, education, public policies, and thought leadership, public program utilization, direct service or feeding efforts, and also food donations. Emerging funding strategies include cost marketing as well as indications, replications, and also social enterprise solutions. By integrating these strategies where appropriate, the expectations are improving nutrition for children as well as increased food access. The outcome itself will ultimately contribute to the planned results of ending food hunger. Third is measuring and managing. We have to remember and note again that the intended result on the far right is improved children's food security, and on the far left it can generally be identified as well-managed grantee partners, capital, financial, and also supporting functions. This model, however, is not a substitute for action planning. That would be very detailed in which grantee, when, which, and how tactically each strategy is placed out every time, because it provides a high-level roadmap to specify the information as well as the progress indicators. And lastly, we have alignment, accountability, and action. It offers an important way to specify relative and also shared outputs from activities that influence the outcome itself. Therefore, with a clear picture, the foundation staff can also better manage and emphasize within strategies that could help lead as the context for anti-hungers and also effort changes. It can also contribute to alignment as well as indications because they offer these powerful principles. Lastly, I would say that logic models and modeling offer a great value to design strategic planning, monitoring, and also evaluations. They can contribute enormously to alignment and indications because they offer a picture that displays these powerful principles. When people and organizations can clearly see their role through the logic model, it is more likely they can fully contribute. Therefore, this case also offers a gentle reminder that accountability is centered to social change.
So, the book mentioned several examples, real examples about the implementation of logic models, and I noticed a pattern in these several examples that include 3 phases, if I may say. The first one is we need to know the cost first. We evaluate the cost, and then we set the input and determine how the plan will be presented. So hopefully it will give the people that will be contributed in the project know exactly what the objectives are. And the second is implementation of the planning and the inputs, and also evaluate the outputs. And the last thing is to see the evaluation itself. Is there any strategy, or is there any weaknesses that can be improved for the next period or something, or is there any chance for us to maintain the situation and etc. So yeah, I think that's all. Thank you.
Next is about Heaven House program. The program provides emergency housing and support services for 1 and 2 parent families with children. It also helps families who are homeless prepare for permanent housing by developing and promoting self-sufficiency, stability, and financial responsibility. Now about the models. It shows clients' evolution in the shelters, barriers, possible outcomes, and it includes external and internal forces that affect the outcomes. The model is also based on program logic models with adaptations. Next, the impact of using the model. By using the models, they can make an evaluation plan by assessing client satisfaction and changes in skills and knowledge, which then follows by feedback and new insights from the clients. The models also help staff to assess the whole situation, their role, and barriers that the residents face. The next one is the PPSI, or Paint Products Stewardship Initiative. It is to create an industry-managed post-consumer paint management system, because there were 75 million gallons of leftover paint in the state of US, which then might consider as hazardous waste. And about the models, it is intended to be accessible and user-friendly, and users can also look at the primary factors, processes, and systems involved. Users also may look at the program's underlying research and data within the model, which influences shapes of the systems, placements, and engagement of actors and processes, and the available hot links that can take users to documents for associated purposes. The impact of using the models is the model triggers performance measurements and help formulate evaluation questions. And also because it is user-friendly and web-based, thus it gives the user chances to give feedbacks or insights that will further help evolving or influence the model.